There is someone you trust completely. You might not even know their name. You might have only seen their face for a few seconds. But something about them made you decide, instantly and automatically, that they were good, competent, worth listening to. And here is the uncomfortable part. You did not decide that. Your brain did. Before you had a single piece of evidence, before they said a word. This is not a flaw in certain kinds of people. It is not something you can opt out of by being smarter or more careful. It is a feature of the human mind so deeply built in that it has been shaping your judgments, your relationships, your career, and your vote for your entire life without you noticing once. It is called the halo effect, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. In 1920, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike noticed something strange about how military officers rated their soldiers. When an officer believed a soldier was physically impressive, something happened. That same soldier was suddenly rated as more intelligent, more dependable, a better leader, more morally upright. Across the board, in every category, one good trait was pulling all the others upward with it, like a single light source casting a glow over everything nearby. Thorndike called it the halo effect. He thought it was an interesting quirk of military psychology. He had no idea he had just described one of the most powerful cognitive forces in human history. Think about what is happening here. A soldier's posture is influencing his commanding officer's assessment of his character. Not his track record, not his decisions under pressure, his posture, his jawline, the way he carries himself when someone glances at him for the first time. If that sounds like something that would never affect you, keep reading. In 1977, two researchers named Richard Nisbett and Timothy Wilson ran an experiment at the University of Michigan. They had students watch video recordings of a university lecturer. One group watched him being warm, friendly, and approachable. Another group watched the same man being cold, distant, and aloof. Then both groups were asked to rate his physical appearance, his accent, and his mannerisms. The warm version was rated as more physically attractive. His accent was described as more pleasant. His mannerisms were seen as more likable. Nothing changed about his face. Nothing changed about his voice. The only thing that changed was how warm he seemed. And that single impression reached backward and rewrote everything else. Your brain does not evaluate people in categories. It does not score appearance separately from intelligence, separately from trustworthiness. It takes one strong signal and extrapolates outward from it in every direction at once, filling in blanks it has not actually examined with data it does not actually have. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman has written about this at length. He describes the mind as running two systems simultaneously. One is fast, automatic, and built for pattern recognition. The other is slow, deliberate, and exhausting. The fast system is the one that meets someone and within seconds has already decided whether they are competent, whether they are honest, and whether they are worth listening to. The slow system would push back on that. The slow system would ask for evidence. But the slow system is expensive. It requires effort. So for most of the judgments you make about people, your fast system hands in its verdict before the slow system has even opened its eyes. The halo effect is what that fast system produces when a single positive trait triggers a cascade of positive assumptions across the board. It runs in both directions. A single negative trait, caught early, pulls everything else downward with equal force. Researchers call this the horn effect, the shadow where the halo used to be. Someone stumbles over their words in the first sentence of a job interview, and suddenly everything that follows is filtered through the assumption that they are nervous, unqualified, or unreliable. The rest of the interview becomes not an evaluation, but a confirmation. But nowhere does the halo effect operate more consistently than in the domain of physical appearance. The research here is large, replicable, and deeply uncomfortable. Attractive people are rated as more intelligent in studies where intelligence cannot be observed. They are rated as more honest in studies where honesty is not being measured. They are given longer looks at their work, more benefit of the doubt when they fail, and shorter sentences in criminal proceedings where judges believe they are being objective. A 1974 study by researchers Harold Sigel and Nancy Ostro found that when an identical crime was committed by an attractive defendant versus an unattractive one, the attractive defendant received a significantly lighter sentence from mock jurors. They saw the same crime. They read the same facts. The only variable was a photograph. And before you locate yourself outside of this, note that the effect was just as strong in jurors who had been explicitly told to be fair. This is the part that makes the halo effect genuinely strange. It is not that people are lazy or malicious. It is that the bias operates underneath conscious awareness. People who are experiencing it do not know they are experiencing it. In Nisbet and Wilson's original study, participants whose judgments had been clearly influenced by the warmth manipulation were asked whether the lecturer's personality had affected their rating of his appearance. Almost all of them said no. They were not lying. They genuinely could not see it. Your brain produces a judgment, and then, when asked about it, confabulates a rational-sounding explanation for a decision it actually made on entirely different grounds. This is not unusual. This is routine. The explanation is invented after the fact to make the judgment feel justified. And you believe the explanation because you are the one who came up with it. The halo effect does not announce itself. It masquerades as your own considered opinion. Solomon Asch, one of the most important social psychologists of the 20th century, demonstrated this with a simple experiment in the 1940s. He gave two groups of people a list of words describing a person. One list included the word warm, the other included the word cold. Every other word was identical. Then he asked both groups to describe the person. The groups' descriptions were completely different. The warm person was curious, happy, generous, and sociable. The cold person was calculating, self-centered, and unsociable. One word had rippled outward and redrawn an entire human being. Asch called warmth a central trait. It was not just one descriptor among many. It was a gravitational field that pulled all the others toward it or away from it, depending on its charge. And this was not about shallow first impressions. These were carefully considered descriptions of a fictional character assembled from a list of adjectives. The participants took time. They thought about it. And the halo effect ran underneath all of it, invisible and decisive. Consider what this means for the people in your life. There is someone you decided early was smart, and ever since then, you have interpreted their mistakes as exceptions. There is someone you decided early was difficult, and ever since then, you have read their silences as hostility. There is someone whose confidence in a meeting made you overestimate their competence, someone whose nervous energy made you underestimate their insight. Someone you hired or promoted or trusted not because of what they showed you, but because of a halo you cast over them from the beginning, built on something as thin as a firm handshake or a well-chosen tie. None of this is your fault. The halo effect is not a bug in your reasoning. It is a feature inherited from minds that had to make fast decisions about other humans in environments where getting that decision wrong could end you. In a world where you had seconds to judge whether a stranger was threat or ally, friend or predator, fast was better than precise. Precise was a luxury your ancestors could not afford. But you are not living in that world. You are living in a world where the person whose posture triggers your unconscious authority heuristic might be confidently wrong, where the candidate whose attractiveness generates a halo of competence might be spectacularly unqualified. Where the person whose fumbled first sentence triggered your horn effect might be the most capable one in the room. The researchers who study the halo effect are not optimistic about simply trying harder to avoid it. Awareness helps at the margins, but the machinery runs below the level where awareness can reach it. What actually works is structuring evaluations to limit the damage. Blind auditions, where orchestras stopped seeing the musicians and started hiring dramatically more women. Structured interviews, where every candidate is asked the same questions in the same order, scored on the same criteria, before any holistic impression is formed. Anonymous review processes that remove the information the halo is built on before it can spread. The halo effect is not eliminated by knowing about it. It is managed by building systems that do not give it room to operate. Which means the most important thing is not to convince yourself you are immune. It is to notice where in your life you have made yourself most vulnerable to a bias that has been operating in your blind spot since the first human being looked at another and made a snap judgment about whether to trust them. The next time someone impresses you immediately, ask yourself what they have actually shown you. And ask yourself what your brain is quietly filling in on their behalf. It is more than you think. It always has been.